Hey guys, I just want to make a quick one here. I'm going to make it as quick as I can, but I got to be a little bit thorough. We have the draft coming up, and I want to make sure you guys are comfortable with the system. So first of all, I'd like to point out that it is a bit easier with a PC, a desktop, like I'm using right now. But you can use your phone. It's no problem. You can totally run your team using a phone, but it is quite a bit easier with a PC. So one thing I like to do when I'm using a PC in particular is have a couple of pages open. So I have another league page open. You can open as many as you want. And the reason I do that is because during this time of the season, I'll give you an example here. Let's go to add drop here. What you might notice is on the positions, let's go to defensive back or any position. As you can see, there's no points scored right now. And in particular, defensive players, you can sort them based on their ranks. Percentage owned is a good one. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of information for defensive players when it comes to percentage owned. Now, as the season goes on, you will be able to use these lists to sort them based on overall points for the season. And you can also sort them on what they did just last week if you want to find hot players. But at any rate, I want to show you how to make a bid on a player and then how to sort your list. Let's just put some players on the list here. Okay, so we're going to say make a bid, and let's just put names on the list. And I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to keep it down to 4 players because we don't need much more than that. Okay, so this is it. You submit the list. Always hit submit when you're done with the list. So now we will have a list. And another thing is always have just one list going at a time. So the way to know how many lists you have going is to review your bids. So go to your team, hit review bids, and then your list will come up. Now the way to sort this list is to hit edit. Always hit edit first. And now this list can be sorted. So you might want to move this guy up. You just keep moving him up until you get him to where you want him. If you hit the guy at the top up, he goes to the bottom. You can also add more guys to this current list. But once you've done that, always remember, click submit. So let's say, use the slider in the middle too, because these are 3 different pages. Basically, this one will move up and down, but the whole page doesn't move at the same time. There's your roster, click inside the field. Over here, you have to click in here to get that to move. They don't all move together. Okay, so let's say you wanted to make a claim and you forgot that you had a list going. And so you went ahead and made another list. Okay, this is the way you will know if you're running more than one list. Let's submit that one. Okay. Now let's review bids. As you can see now, you have 2 lists going. Now this was the older list. This is the newer list. You know, what I'm going to do in the future, if I see 2 lists, I'm going to go with the most recent submission, which would be the one below. This was our first list we did. Then we made another one just now. That was the most recent submission. But I prefer you guys to run one list. So what you would do is if you reviewed your bids and saw that you had more than one list going, just cancel one of them, the one you don't want to use. Just run one. It makes it so much easier. Got to click OK to confirm that you want to do this. And now when you see that I review bids, I'm back to one list. Remember, when I want to add players to this list or sort this list, hit edit. And it's that simple. So the reason I run more than one page right now is because you notice there's no scores here, right? On the side. So it's really hard to sort based on what they scored last year. If you have another page open, check this out. You go over here to statistics. You can get that from the drop-down menu as well. And this drop-down menu gives you a lot of different options. You might look it over. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. But go to statistics. Right there. And now it'll take you to a stat page that will show you last year's numbers for all these players. So we can go over to the defensive backs, for example, here. And you can see what they scored last year. right? You can even see who already owns these guys. You can sort this list too by just free agents. You can also sort these headers. So if you just want to look for guys who got a lot of interceptions last year, you can sort that way, and it'll give you a ranking list based on interceptions and all of these statistics. Tackles. And you can do that in any position. You can sort them based on different things, like tight ends. We're going to say we want to sort them maybe on touchdowns. So touchdown receptions. I think that's the reception is C. There you have it. Or just simply points, you know. Or completions. Well, tight ends don't throw passes too often, but how about targets? You can actually sort on targets. And again, if you want to see every player, even the ones that are taken, you can just say all players. And then it'll show who owns each guy, and you'll see kind of where these free agents fall in line with the players that are taken. And they sort them. This bar is about 20 players. Next bar down would be the top 40. So that's why I like to run 2 pages, and this is also why I prefer to run, to do my business on the league on a computer, on a desktop, because the phone's nice when I'm on the road, maybe at work, and I just want to check scores. But running a team, a little bit tougher to do. You can do it, but you got to realize that when you're looking on your phone, everything on the website is in sequential order. So this is the first thing you'll see, and then this will be the next thing, and then it goes left to right. So you go back down now, and here, that should be the next thing, I think. It's kind of confusing to me, actually, sometimes. Seems like this is the next thing, the way I set it up. And I believe that's true, because I could show you. Edit main page content. You can see that I line up the information this way. It asks me, what do you want to see first? What's next? And this is how I can arrange it, and I can change and rearrange these things. That's how that works for me as the commissioner. And I want you guys to also realize that I never spy your draft lists. That would be stupid of me. It's no fun for me if I'm spying people's lists. Don't worry about that. I'm a very honest person. And unfortunately, we can't use the draft timer because it doesn't have defensive players included in it. I've tried it, and it doesn't have defensive players for some reason. I think that's because a lot of leagues don't use individual defensive players. Maybe one day Fanstar is going to make that available, and that would be a nice day because then we could start drafting like they do in Scoresheet. You know, where you have the timer going on. That would be awesome. But the way we're going to have to do it right now is you just have to, if you're like the 7th pick of the day, you have to give me a list of about 7 players in order to ensure that you get somebody. Now look, when we start doing 2-a-days, we're going to have to draft 2 players a day down the road because we got a late start on this. On those days, let's say you want a defensive back for sure, and maybe you have the 6th pick, but you may not get your top guy. But here's the deal. So if you do get your guy, you get a defensive back, and you have many other defensive backs listed on your ranking list, but you don't want 2 defensive backs. I hope you guys are following me. You just want to draft 1 defensive back that day, not 2. Send me an email telling me your intention. Say, if I sign a DB, don't sign a second DB. Or if I sign a running back, don't sign a second running back. Just move on to the next highest ranked guy at a different position. And that's what I'll do. So you'll have to do that on these days where we're having to select 2 players. And that's going to start pretty quickly into the draft. The first 3 days, we're going to pick 1 player a day. I basically go into the system. I have another league that I draft for at 9 a.m., and then I come into this league after I'm done with that one, which is pretty quick. And the thing is you don't want to wait until I start firing off picks on the website. You'll see them updated as you refresh the page, but you don't have a lot of time to sort your list because I go through it pretty quickly. To draft 10 players shouldn't take me more than about 10 to 15 minutes. So just to let you guys know, you got to be careful with that. Don't wait. Just make a complete list going into each morning before 9 a.m. Pacific time. I'm on West Coast time. I know a lot of you guys are East Coast. So, you have basically on the East Coast until almost noon to sort your list, which is plenty of time. And that's the thing. Just basically have your lists ready to go in the morning when you wake up or the night before when you go to bed. Check out the draft picks from the day. Go and resort your list, do your research, because I have no other way of doing it. I just have to do all the picks at once. And I just go through, pick the top guy on your list, and then draft him for you. I allow the transaction. And again, like I said, I'll be checking the emails every day to see if there's any specific instructions. If it's a 2-pick-a-day, which is going to be pretty much after Thursday, I think it is. Starting Thursday or Friday, it's going to be 2 a day. I have instructions here on the site. There it is right there. Starting on Friday, September 3, we'll make 2 picks a day. So on that day, on Friday, you might want to send me an email saying, hey, don't draft more than, if I get a DB, don't draft a second DB. Or if I get a whatever position, I don't want a second one. Or maybe you don't mind getting 2. In that case, you would just let me draft straight off your list. Okay, so that's pretty much what I had. I'm sure I might have forgot something, but hopefully you guys also remember this whole thing about sorting lists. This is very important. This is how you do it. And at the end of sorting, making your list, and if you're satisfied with it, just click submit. And remember, only one list at a time. That's very important. It cuts down the confusion for me. If you want to see your bids, hit review bids. Then you can see you only have one list. You would see another one below if there was one. And if there is one and somebody just made the mistake of running 2 lists, it happens quite often, I'm going to just start going with the newest list. And that will be the one below this one. If you had 2 lists, the newest one would be down here. That's what I'm going to do. I might try to fire you an email in the morning and say, hey, you got 2 lists. Is this what you want? Or, hopefully you're available at that time because I can't wait too long. I have to move along, with things. And I think that's about all I have. This should be a pretty fun season. I'm glad we all got it back together. 10-team league now. Should be fun. There's, everybody's going to have a lot of talent. A little bit more than in a 12-team league. And I think you guys might have noticed that I cut the league into 2 divisions now. That was for scheduling purposes. When we had 12 teams, it was easier to have everybody play everybody once. And then that week 13, 14 thing was where I played best to worst, to sort out playoff battles amongst the middle of the pack teams. But this is a good way to go because you play each of your division opponents twice, just like in Score Sheet, and you play the other division teams once each. And then that'll give us 13 weeks of football. And then in week 14, remember the NFL is going 18 weeks now. So our Super Bowl is now going to be week 17. The semifinal is going to be week 16. And the wild card is going to be week 15. So after our regular season of 13 games, there's going to be that week 14. And I'm going to use that for number 1 will face number 10. Number 2 will face number 9. 3 will face 8. 4 will face 5. And, excuse me, I probably mixed that up somewhere. 3 plays 7 probably. Anyways, the main matchup is that 5 versus 6 matchup, actually. 4 and 7, 5 and 6. Those middle of the pack teams might be really close in records, and that week 14 battle will allow us to maybe decide who gets into the playoffs. We're going to go with 5 teams for the playoffs, so half the league will make the playoffs. That's pretty cool. You have a pretty good shot at making the playoffs. The number 4 and number 5 teams will play in a wild card game in week 15, and then the survivors of that game obviously will play the best team in the league in the semifinal. And number 2 and number 3 plays each other in the semifinal. And, of course, the final week 17 will be the Super Bowl. And then I'll have those consolation games for us, too, this year once again. Anybody who didn't make the playoffs will be in their own little consolation bracket. And even teams that lose during the playoffs that are in the championship bracket, you will also get a consolation game, at least one consolation game. And that will be during Super Bowl week where everybody will get a bowl game. So that's about all I have for you. A little bit longer than I want it to be, but I think, I needed to go over these things. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later.